Hi, everybody. I know we're a little bit early. We're going to give it a couple of minutes to let everyone jump on. So feel free to hop on. And then if you would like to introduce yourselves in the Q&A box, feel free to answer those questions that Lesley has for everybody while we're waiting.
I'm especially interested in the favorite Tulsa establishment question.
Yes. Yes, me too. Okay, we'll give it one more minute and then I'll do our housekeeping and I'll let you jump in. One more minute, this will give you guys a head start. So start typing out your responses, introduce yourself in the Q&A. Let us hear a little bit about it. We're gonna share a few things. We promise not to share your name so we don't out anybody.
And Taco Bueno was gonna be my third choice. So just so you know, if you can't choose between one or two, like just list them all. But only the Taco Bueno by TU's campus. I should clarify that.
Oh, so now we're selective. I like it.
Now we're selective in our muchachos.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started. We'll have people jump on as they come in. So just a couple of things. Welcome everybody to our virtual career lab of how to be more than a resume. First off, participants, you guys are in listen only mode, so just keep that in mind. You do not have the option to speak or jump on video, but you do have the option to connect with us through the Q&A box, and we have a couple of other interactive pieces for you as we go through this presentation. So with that, make sure that if you have any questions or your responses to these questions, which we'll maybe share a few of ours as we get into it, please post those in the Q&A. And then last but not least, this is recorded. We're going to be having that on the King Careers website and TU's YouTube channel under the King Careers playlist there. So with that being said, I'm going to turn this over to Lesley and let her take it away.
Hi, everyone. In fact, I actually prefer howdy as a greeting. So so nice to be with you virtually. I am not in Bayless Plaza. I'm actually in Austin, Texas. Which is why it's so cool that we can do this and bring together alums from all over the nation, the world. I'm kind of like anxious to see where people are coming in from. I see someone that's coming from Tulsa. I see Amy who's in Tulsa for sure. I know that I've got my mom and stepdad calling in from North Carolina, so I can't see you, but I'm glad to see that we've got other states represented. So in an attempt to make this as interactive and as informal as possible, I want to just kind of quickly introduce myself and kind of why we're talking about the topic today. So I am a 2006 alum from TU. I'm from Tulsa. I went to Booker T, so yay BT Dub. I've always been a proud TU alum wherever I've been in the world. And so I moved away from Tulsa in 2008. So it's been a while, and since then I've moved around, but always kind of in a career that was plotted or pathed out from the interests and things that I had studied while I was at TU. So graduated in 2006 and then immediately started working for TU. I actually, as part of my communications project, pitched the idea of a study abroad advisor because I thought that it was an opportunity that students didn't really know too much about when I was at least an undergrad. And then from there, realized that my career, my dream was to be involved in international education, but more specifically, just kind of the idea of being uncomfortable and having new sights, new sounds, new smells, new tastes. And so from there, I moved to New Jersey. I always kind of say it like a jail sentence, like I did 8 years in New Jersey, but had some wonderful opportunities at Princeton University working with their international student scholar population, and then also was able to finish a master's in global and international education from Drexel University, and as part of that master's did my co-op in Japan, teaching English to Japanese students, but also focusing my thesis research on Japanizing, I should say internationalizing the Japanese classroom. And then realized that we wanted to come back closer to home. And by we, I mean my husband and I. So he is also TU alum. He graduated in '07. And then we landed in Austin, Texas almost 5 years ago. And Austin's been really, really good to us. If you haven't been here, it's a fun city. It's a delicious city. I'm happy to send you recommendations, but also I'm loving seeing everyone's Tulsa recommendations because you're making me miss it. Tulsa is such a great place to be. And actually we're going to be there on Friday. So hoping to, you know, at least pick up some curbside from some of these places too. But one thing that's been interesting in my career is it's always been focused on international education, and that's always been kind of like a guiding light for me, and something that seemed like really intentional in terms of conferences I can go to, or networking, or just how to navigate that like specific segment of higher education. But what I learned, and especially in taking a dream job at St. Edward's University, directing an office that did both study abroad and international student services, is that, you know, my resume was pretty calculated, and as were my experiences, but I realized that actually it's more about pivoting and finding out who you are and finding out your values and finding out, you know, what life is like off of that piece of paper. So wanted to just spend some time with y'all today talking about kind of just my thoughts around the topic of being more than your resume, and especially kind of asterisk mark disclaimer according to me. So with that, I'll get on the right screen. Welcome to the session. I really wish that I could see some of your faces and interact and, you know, give thumbs up and snaps and all of that, but I'm assuming that what I'm saying is resonating. But please do use that Q&A box, and we will try to monitor and ask and answer, I guess, answer questions along the way. It's very informal. So yeah. One thing that I'm guilty of is especially when I was in undergrad, is that I always would convince myself to do things by saying, but it will look great on your resume. And so that always equaled, like, the strategy was, how would I position it? How would I bullet point it out? How would I format it to be on, you know, my resume? And so I'm saying, according to me, that maybe that's one of the most common phrases that we hear on the college campus, is just overburdening ourselves with organizations and leadership positions and research, and all in the goal of it going on that piece of paper. And that was kind of the justification to make for a lot of different decisions. But I wanted to kind of give some like insight or some like different perspective in terms of that piece of paper that was kind of guiding so many of my different decisions and things, especially during undergrad and after, which is approximately how many words does a standard one-page resume have? And if you guys put this in the Q&A, I think it'll be really interesting in terms of all those leadership positions, all those articles you write or read or jobs you have, and how then does that get summarized into a word count or condensed into a word count? So we've got a vote for number 1, which is 500 words. We've
got a 2 and a 1.
So 2, and again, this is a standard one-page resume. All right. So, and a 3, a 1, a 1, a 1, a 1. Okay, seems like the ones have it. So the answer is 500 words. So all those hours, all those efforts, all those meetings, all those papers, all those emails, everything gets condensed down to one page. And so it's really hard then to define your life in that one page. So you really should then think about, you know, your career off of that one piece of paper, and what that looks like, and how do you capture that, and how do you tell a story, which is really where we're going to go with today. So the point of today is that you're not your resume, right? But the real world is that resumes aren't going away. So they're definitely going to be around. So then how do you, have a resume and also like live off of that one page or two pager that you have? And so instead we're going to focus on opening yourself and sharing, what makes you you. And that learning objective for today equals like understanding the importance of networking. Yay, networking. I don't know where everyone falls on networking, but it's definitely something that I've grown to love more. It's definitely a love-hate relationship. So we'll kind of talk through some strategies of networking. And then 2, like knowing what makes you you, like what's your memorable piece? Like what is your thing that's going to stick behind in someone's head when they hear your name, what's going to like ring true for you? So then that equals, in terms of the learning objective, confidently making connections. And then 3 is going digital. So especially in today's age, we all need to have and know and understand and control our digital footprint. So that equals some strategies and kind of some tips and tricks for improving your online presence. And I'm not an expert in this, but I know a lot of students who are. So I'm going to kind of share what I've been seeing, at least with Gen Z specifically. And then becoming personable and becoming approachable. So that then equals demonstrating those leadership skills. And leadership is such a broad, complex topic, but, you know, kind of then this is me putting my spin on leadership and what that's, you know, equated to my experiences. So I'm going to pause for a second. I'm going to take a sip of water. I'm going to like look at the Q&A and make sure, Brooke, that we're still on track before moving on with kind of these 4 bullet points for the rest of the time together.
It looks like we're good. You've gotten a couple of responses about favorite places to eat. Got Gnarly Dogs and Flying Burger. I've never been to either, so I'll add that to my list. And then you got The Brook. If you're a lover of mac and cheese or anything fried, that place is amazing. Let's see. I can tell you my personal favorite is Mondo's. It's Italian food.
Mondo's is good. Yes, we will always break for restaurant recommendations. All right, I think we'll move on then. I say that, but let me get my mouse going. All right, so for the love of networking, right? So there are a lot of thoughts and opinions and strategies and tips and tricks for networking. And these have been the ones that have rung true for me. And these have been the ones that I have, you know, gleaned after going to countless conferences and sessions and happy hours and you know, specific networking events. So take them in terms of this is what I would tell someone in terms of, you know, how to do networking. So I always kind of make it a game. I always would have a goal in my mind to give away 5 business cards and also to get 5 business cards. And you can either like crush that goal and like get out the door in 5 minutes, or, you know, depending on how those conversations go, you know, you might stay longer with like one quality conversation. But there's always a goal to give and get business cards. And so that kind of just made it a little bit more fun. It gave it intention, and it also kind of just gave me something to like to get through, or to go to, you know, give me the energy to actually make it into the room. The second thing is rank your interactions, and do this, you know, right after you leave that event. And I always would rank them 1 to 5. And I LinkedIn everybody. So we'll talk about LinkedIn a little bit later. But if you get a business card, that's a touch point. And I do think that it's worth, you know, sending a LinkedIn invitation. But you want to, you know, you want to rank and understand like how that conversation went, and especially right on the back of the business card, any follow-ups. And like I said, this was always something I usually did right after I would leave a room, because I think that it made the most sense while those conversations were fresh. But then I would go home, or I would be on a plane, and I would sort the business cards and really then think about what follow-up might look like. The third is, you know, have 3 takeaway gems. So if you're at a conference or you're in the room, like what are 3 things that you would tell colleagues or your family or your friends or other people about like the conference that you went to, or the topic or the session? Because you don't want to just say like, oh, it was good, it was nice. Like actually come up with like the three takeaways, and then that shows the value add. And if you it's hard to think of 3, then maybe that wasn't the right conference and don't go back to it. But if it was easy to think of 3, then obviously that's a great conference to return to. And so it also just helps in terms of conversation starters, like, oh, I really love this session on blank because blank blank. And so it's just nice to kind of then find common ground around a topic versus maybe like the personal aspect of like trying to getting to know someone outside of a field. I always say like business cards are your friends literally, because I have had business cards turn into friendships, and that kind of goes in the next one, which is Yelp dates. But when I would talk with someone or have a connection and follow up, like, and I would know that I would return to that conference, or that I might see them again the next year or the next month if it was a monthly event, I'd always say like, look, there's this restaurant that I want to try. Do you want to get lunch before? Do you want to grab coffee, or do you want to, go get happy hour? And try to make time to facilitate or to nurture that relationship after, whatever that formal event might be. And heck, who doesn't love trying new restaurants? And, it's a great way to also just not have coffee by yourself, but to make it more fun. And so for me, that's actually equaled a relationship that I had at a conference where we always would make time to go and try a local dessert place. And we did that 5 years in a row, if you can believe it. But it just then built that friendship, and we've been, cheerleaders of each other's careers ever since. So I say that because business cards literally can turn into friendships. Get personal, but don't be generic. I feel like that's really obvious, but if you have a template and you copy paste and just insert someone's name, this is happening all the time on LinkedIn right now. It's actually really a problem. It's not going to go anywhere. I don't pay attention to copy paste, like reach out. So be intentional. I almost think, so yeah, I just say be intentional. Create a call to action. So you always, I think, want to have like that call to action in your mind, the reason why you're writing the email. And it might be like, hey, I thought about this article and you should go check it out. Or, hey, this book made me think about that conversation we were saying. Or, hey, do you remember that name of someone that you mentioned might know that something? Have the call to action that's like easy to respond to. And I think that that's also really helpful in terms of networking, and especially that follow-up. Don't let the art of the thank you die. I actually just interviewed 32 students for some internships that I had, and out of the 32, 3 wrote me thank you emails. And so those thank you emails are definitely, I feel like, a dying art, but they really make the difference, and they really stand out. And I think that goes for networking and conversations that you have to spend that time, to be intentional, to have that call to action, to really, stay relevant in somebody's inbox. And if they don't respond to, then, have that nudge and that follow up, and just encourage them to, want to reach back out to you, even if they're busy. Like, hey, I know you're busy, but just wanted to let you know that, bumping this to the top of your inbox or something along that. But I say that because I do try to prioritize, especially after networking or conferences, like sitting down, and I'll block my calendar to do follow-up emails and to write thank you cards. So I feel like that's actually part of conference prep, or like networking prep, is to like block the calendar to do the follow-up and not get too busy that doesn't happen. Be a connector and share your network. I think that's good karma. If you meet someone and you could not find, what the common ground would be, or what the ask would be, or what that call to action would be, but you can think of someone else who might really benefit from the conversation you just had, or the background or experience of that person, share that connection. I've gotten 2 jobs from people who have connected me to other people because they knew my background, and they knew of an opportunity or heard of an opportunity, and really, we're generous with their network. And that's one thing I think Tulsa is fabulous at. And, Austin is really good at it too, but Tulsa specifically is fabulous about it, is sharing their network and doing informational interviews and following up. And if I say, and I know Amy's on this call, but if I say like, Amy, you should know this person, they're coming to Tulsa, this would be a good contact for you. And follow up with that, because I think then that vetting, that validation is key. And I do think it comes back to you. So I do think that there is karma and there is return in being a good connector. It's all on the cards, so keep them. I have like a pile of business cards. They're in a vase, and those things have probably moved to 5 different offices with me. But one thing I do is they're usually more of like the 4s and the 5s if I'm ranking them. But if I have like a down period, I just need a break, or I don't know, I just want to do something different, I'll reach in, pull out a business card, and then reconnect with that person. So it's kind of just a nice way to, like, if you just need a different activity or something to take your mind off of what you're currently doing. Like I'll reach in that vase, pull up the business card, and then like quickly, hey, I was thinking about you. Or there's one like, hey, you won my business card draw. Let's go get coffee, or something along those lines. So I just can't bring myself to throw them away. It's just something that like has become valuable to me, and so they just live in the space that gets transported around. The other thing is, if you've never Googled yourself, Google yourself. What do you look like on the other end of a Google? If you met someone at a conference and they couldn't remember your name, or they, only remembered like certain things about you, like how are they going to find you? Can they find you on LinkedIn? Can they find you on Google? Like, how are you going to be like searchable? So those are kind of just like the tips and tricks that I have for networking and how I've like become to love it. But it's hard. It's really hard to walk into a room of people that you don't know, find common ground, leave with the connections, call it good, and then, have some kind of follow-up afterwards. So I hear that that's hard. And these are just kind of some of the things that have worked for me over the past couple of years. I'm looking, I see, hi, Carrie. I see that Carrie keeps her old business cards too, and her old thank you cards. And that's also true is I don't know if you've had the experience of like walking into someone's office and they have your thank you card up on their bulletin board or behind their computer, but yeah, that's really special, and it really does mean a lot to some people. So keep that going.
You had another one say that they never considered the importance of Google searching themselves. That was an eye-opener for them too.
Yeah, if you can't find you, they can't find you, because you know all about you. So definitely just try to think like, oh, what was her name? Where was she from? Like, if I look at these 4 things, will I find her? I do the same thing on LinkedIn. I can't tell you how many times I remember someone's first name, but not their last name, but I remember where they live, and I kind of remember the company they worked for, and you can find them. So, all right, I think we're good to move on. So in terms of like identifying strategies and resources to improve your online presence, like this is a hot topic right now, right? We need to live in a digital world. We are living in a digital world. You are interacting with this session and this content in a digital way. So think about your personal brand. Going back to that, have you ever Googled yourself? Like, be Googleable, if that's a word. Be Googleable. I didn't say that one out loud. Now I can't talk. I didn't say that one out loud when I wrote it down, but be Googleable. Make it really easy for someone to find you. And that means, you putting your website out, or putting your name on things that maybe you wouldn't normally put your name on, but also just be aware that, you do have control of your online presence. You just need to know what it looks like to be able to control it. I love the hashtag, and this has kind of been my mantra, especially in managing people, of like, you do you. And so that, to me, that equals like the real authentic you. So knowing yourself, and we'll talk about this later too, and knowing your strengths and weaknesses. Like, when I am doing me, I'll say like you do you, and also respect that like I'm doing me, and just understand that this is me and my true authentic like self, but own it and claim it. And so I just think that really rings true in terms of like just owning your personality traits, or owning your strengths, or your crazy weaknesses, and just letting people know that you are self-aware that that's what you're doing, and that's your true authentic self. So the next little piece of advice, or the bullet, is share your likes and like your likes. So if you love a book, share that with someone. If you don't want to share it with someone, just like that author, or like it on Goodreads, but start having an inventory of the things that really make sense for you. Start having a presence in the areas that mean a lot to you. And so there's a couple different ways to do that, and I'm using Goodreads as an example because my sister reads a lot, and she has a running list of books, and sometimes I'll just go to her Goodreads list and see what she's reading, or connect, or say, oh, I read that, or I'm reading that now, I see you read that last year, like, let's talk about it, or let's do some kind of personality test on a walk and talk, since we both read that book. Same thing with like Spotify. If you're loving songs, like, share your playlist. Just start having like that presence in the different areas that people can maybe associate, or interact with you on. So I like to say like show and tell is alive and well. I love show and tell, but I think, you know, in terms of expressing your creative side, there's a lot of ways to do this. And I know that you guys can't click on this because I'm sharing my screen, but this is the online portfolio of my student creative design intern. And she gave me permission to share it, but well, let's go back. I'll send it to you guys later. Um, it's definitely become a thing to have an online portfolio. I personally don't have one because I'm just not a creative person that has like visuals to put up, but what I consider my online portfolio is actually my LinkedIn. So LinkedIn has very much become like a CV for me where I put anything and everything. I upload presentations, I upload press releases, I upload certificates that I've gotten. I, you know, will put sessions that I've attended. I will put on sessions that I've been speakers on. Like for example, this will go on there because you just need an inventory to go to remember all the things that you did, but also to pick and choose from when you are creating that resume or you are trying to be relevant for a specific job or a specific opportunity. You already have it in an easy format to go to. And so I'm a checklist person. This is an easy way for me to just check boxes in terms of like seeing in a very clear way all the different things that I've done in my career. And so LinkedIn happens to be like the social platform that I invest and interact in the most. I don't tweet a lot. I don't Instagram, I don't Facebook, but like you will find me and everything that I've done and everything that I like and the authors and, you know, the people that I follow and cheerlead on my LinkedIn. And it's just an easy way to also forward people. So for me, like show and tell is my LinkedIn, but I totally love the people who have like that creative gene and the images and, you know, the assets to be able to put in an online format because it's beautiful when you can just give it to someone and they can consume it in an easy to read format. So the last thing I'll say in terms of like your personal brand is pitching yourself and knowing your brand. And this has really rung true in my current position. And I didn't tell you kind of what I'm doing right now in my life. I wanted to hold that for kind of this section of the presentation. But if there's one thing that I know now, and especially working with startups, is that you always need to be prepared to give an elevator pitch and to pitch yourself. And you need to do it in a way that sounds authentic, is, you know, like bite size, and that someone can have a reaction to. And I always say, you know, it's got to be something that people's like ears perk up to, right? Like a dog in terms of like, oh, okay, well that resonated with me. And if you don't see that ear perk, then, you know, you move on. But you've got a bite size, a sound bite that you can put out into the world that really like is condensed to what it is that you're doing. So before we move on to kind of like the pitching yourself and, you know, personal brand and all of that, I did want to pause, check our time, and then I do see that there is a question or a comment.
Yeah, so you have one person said the big takeaways is a great tip for all walks of career. For the introverts out there, this is a great predictable conversation starter, and it makes you challenge yourself to be focused and engaged in presentation settings, which is very true. I totally agree. And then another person said, I read that it is a good idea to make some sort of posting on LinkedIn at least once a month to keep a presence. Do you agree with this? What would you recommend a student post on their LinkedIn?
Yeah, so we'll for sure talk more about LinkedIn. I'm a huge advocate for LinkedIn. I do think that, you know, as a student and you're creating that professional brand for you and also just building your network, I do think that you need to have a presence on there. I don't know what the right amount is. I don't know what that cadence is. I feel like oftentimes I like things more than I put out to the world, or I'll reshare things. And in my opinion, that counts. It's an interaction point. It's a touch point. But I don't do a lot of original content. I'm not a writer. It's not something I enjoy doing, but I love sharing other people's, you know, content that they put out or their articles or their posts. And so, you know, I think find the balance and just see then how people are interacting with what you are putting out into the world. It happens to be that whenever I'll post a quote, that gets the most likes because it's an easy like, right? It's an easy like, because somebody can read that quote, like it, and be like, yeah, cool, clap, 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 heart, or celebrate, or whatever, insightful, whatever that emoticon reaction is. So yes, do something on LinkedIn. It doesn't have to be like a stressful original content post. It can be a reshare. But I do think that presence is really important.
Looks like we're caught up.
All right. So personal brand value statement. If you like interactive activities on webinars, this is for you. I do not, but I understand that a lot of people do. So I wanted to actually like create some time during this presentation for y'all to think about your personal brand. And so I have this little template that's helpful. And I really wish that we had the chat box feature so that, so that everyone could see what we were doing, but maybe it's actually beneficial that we just have this like anonymous or this private Q&A. But let's set a timer, Brooke. Let's set a timer for maybe like 4 minutes to think about like a personal brand value statement. And for me, the easiest way to kind of like take this on was twofold. You could answer the questions: I am, I help, I understand, or do so that, or you can use this like pre-formatted format and fill in the blanks. And so I wanted to just leave some time. If you haven't thought about your elevator pitch, haven't thought about how you introduce yourselves to others in a soundbite, this is for you, and I hope that this is helpful. I'm going to share mine as an example when we give the 4 minutes are up. But then that's also my introduction to what I'm currently doing in my job, in my life, in my career. So I should have had some kind of background music, but I'll be quiet.
Okay, you have 3.5 minutes. Ready, go.
And if you're comfortable sharing it in the Q&A, we'll read it out loud, but not include your name if by chance you did include your name. I didn't think about background music, but if I had background music, I think I would have put up Shakira, and then I think you guys would have told me to take it off. So note to self.
Yes. Yes. Okay, time is up. We've got a couple in the chat. One says, I am a research graduate student. The next says, I am an IT digital enthusiast. I help businesses improve their processes, customer experience, data insights through technology. I love solving complex problems by breaking them down to simple, understandable, and executable plans and building their leader support and teams to deliver against them.
You know what I love about that? That is like copy paste into your LinkedIn profile summary, right?
Right.
That is the bite size pitch for someone to truly understand like what makes you excited, what gets you up in the morning, what problems you solve, and then yeah. So yay, you copy paste that LinkedIn summary statement.
You also got a couple of Shakira chants in here as well. So
all right, so maybe I will add Shakira to my next presentation. I'm going to go ahead and share mine. And as I share this, I just want to mention I'm new in a new position. And so I've actually like had to pitch myself in a lot of virtual settings and a lot of virtual meetings. And so this has been a helpful exercise for me. But one thing I will say is that, you know, I have found myself in a lot of elevators doing a literal elevator pitch at a like startup co-working space that I used to be part of in downtown Austin. And so next time you're in an elevator, memorize this. You might think it's cheesy, but I can get mine down into like 22 floors. So, all right, so here is mine. So howdy, I'm Lesley Robinson. I manage the newly launched Kendra Scott Women's Entrepreneurial Leadership Institute at the University of Texas at Austin. Hook 'em. I help strengthen the next generation of courageous, creative female leaders who will change the world by empowering women to lead and encouraging the world to follow. I encourage students to find the best path to their own destination so that they can take the world by the horns through new sights, sounds, smells, and taste. And because I work at the University of Texas and because they're crazy here, I have had to perfect my hook 'em, even though at the very beginning I was doing I love you and no one told me that. So, but it's relevant because, you know, it shows that you're invested in the ecosystem that you're at. It shows that that yeah, you understand the culture. And then howdy has always been important to me because I lived in New Jersey for 8 years and it made me unique. It made people kind of stop and be like, howdy, like I haven't heard that before. But it also just is really friendly. I also am a big, huge fan of y'all because it's inclusive. And so I try to use y'all and that makes it informal too. So in terms of like what I'm doing right now in my career, it's, you know, this beautiful conglomeration of all the random backgrounds that I've had leading up to really, you know, a position that I feel like was somehow made for me and my passions and my strengths and my skill set. And when that combination, that balance happens, it's really incredible. So I feel so thankful. And especially right now in COVID and having started the position in February and only having been on UT's campus for 5 weeks, I don't know anyone, but this elevator pitch, this pitch has gotten me through a lot of meetings, a lot of email introductions, a lot of Slack, you know, conversations, and I've got it to a copy paste and have really used it in a lot of different ways. And so if nothing else, it's efficient and it's an easy pull and an easy plug for people to really then understand what you do, who you are, what you're excited about, and yeah, and kind of then how you put that into a short soundbite. So I hope that you can take this exercise with you and use it again and again, perfect it, you know, edit it, change it. But I always think about if I were to get on an elevator with someone and I knew who they were, but they didn't know who I was, like, what could I say that then, you know, when we got to floor 22, they'd have that good idea. And they would either, you know, step off the elevator with their left foot, turn around and say, nice to meet you. And I'll remember you. And there was enough in here that they could Google me if they needed to, or, you know, if it wasn't something that resonated with them and they stepped off the elevator with the right foot, they'd turn back, say, nice to meet you, and keep walking. And so you kind of just always want to leave some kind of lasting impression with someone. So kind of take that to heart. So that was your interactive exercise for the session. Next, we're going to talk about leadership, and I feel like you can't talk about leadership without cheesy quotes or posters or things. So I threw up some of my favorite cheesy leadership quotes, but actually the ones that have really resonated with me and, you know, have stuck with me. And if I were to have these posters up in my office, this is what they would be. But I do think that in terms of how I defined and interact with leadership is, I really think it's just self-awareness and knowing you, and being able to understand, you know, the strengths and weaknesses of how you present yourself in different situations. But also that empowering piece really comes into play in how you show up for others and how you advocate for others. And so in terms of, like, if I were to have a cheesy poster, it would be, you do you, but also I got you. So those would be kind of how I encapsulate leadership. So as I mentioned, I think, you know, great leaders spend the time and invest in getting to know themselves. And then that equals knowing their leadership potential. And so, you know, we say that as being self-aware and knowing who you are, but like asking yourself questions and traveling by yourself and, you know, having dinner by yourself, and like, who are you at your core? What makes you tick? What makes you go? What makes you not go? What makes you energize? What drains your energy? And I do believe in those enneagrams, and I do believe in, you know, Myers-Briggs, and I do believe in, you know, strengths development inventory, because it gives you that intentionality to sit down and really kind of like take an internal look at who you are and how you show up in different situations. And so one thing I think is, you know, we all have interests and we all have passions, but those are the things that are going to motivate you, and those are the things that you want to spend your time doing, and you should protect those, and you should put bubble wrap around your interests and your passions, and always lead with that and always make time for that. And because I think then that makes you a good leader, because it shows that you aren't just about a career or a job. And I need to be taking this advice myself. I realize I need to do that right now in today's day and age. But spend time really cultivating those passions that you have, or finding new passions, because again, I think that goes into understanding, you know, how you operate and how you show up. Strengths are awesome and they're important. And if you know me and you've worked with me, or I've managed you, I'm a taskmaster. I am your classic executor, get stuff done, check the box, move on. And that's great, because you need executors in the world. But what's more great is that I know how that comes across for a lot of people, and am very self-aware when I do become, like what I say, like too taskmaster and too focused on the checkbox. And so understanding the weakness of like the executor strength, and understanding the stress that might put on, you know, teammates or colleagues, is actually my superpower. Because when I can realize when my strength is too much, I can hone it in, and I can try to mitigate the damage that, you know, checking the boxes might come with. But also, when I see the opportunity that there's just ideas flying around and there's the creative big picture thinking people, I can come in and I can, you know, I can create the processes to get the thing done. And to them, that's valuable. And to me, you know, it's my strength showing up in the way that it should. But you've got to understand the other side of the strengths. So if you haven't done, you know, strengths development inventory, hugely recommend it. Yes, because it will tell you what your strengths are, but more importantly, it tells you what those weaknesses might be attached to the strengths. And I think that really is your superpower. So if you ever interview with me, I'm not going to ask you what your strengths are. I'm going to ask you what your weaknesses are. And that then shows that you've done the self, you know, reflection and are self-aware. So personality attributes and how you define when you're saying like you do you is owning it, right? And having that sense of humor. And I have 5 student interns right now, and we actually came up with the perfect solution of my taskmaster executing tendencies when they get to be too much, especially on Slack or Trello, or when I'm just tagging people left and right, is they'll send a little like fire hat emoji or something like fire, or I don't know what it is, like the medical cap emoji. So we laugh about it, and we've been able to find humor and kind of common ground on that. And when they're getting like way too big picture and you know, this isn't you're not thinking in the real world anymore, then I send like a rainbow to them. So it's an interesting way that, at least in this virtual world, we've been able to like kind of own our different personality attributes. And I do think that there's strength and vulnerability, and this is something that I need to also take to heart, is that, you know, to be your true authentic self, you need to be vulnerable and let people in and kind of and tell them the real thing, and not just say like I'm doing fine, but actually like define maybe what fine is. And so the mantras I've had, at least during COVID, is, you know, I'm thankful and grateful, or, you know, patience and grace, patience and grace, patience and grace. And so those have been the ways that I've at least been able to define some of the different emotions and feelings that I've been having, you know, over the past couple of months, is just having those mantras and communicating that in different settings when it makes sense. So I'm going to end. I'm looking at our time. We're doing okay, because I did want to leave some time for Q&A. But I always love the idea of promising practices. I don't really like best practices, because then I think that means like, okay, we're done, that's the best. But I like the idea of promising practices. So I'm going to give you kind of like my 10 promising practices on how to not be your resume. And so again, asterisk disclaimer that this is according to me and my experiences, and take them, you know, with what you will. But at least for me, these have been, you know, the most helpful in trying to translate myself off of a piece of paper. Brooke, are we good to go to keep going? We're set?
Yes, you're good.
All right. So number 1, know your values. This is a huge, big value list. I don't know how it looks on your screen. It looks huge on mine, but I'm sure it's super small and blurry on yours. If you haven't ever thought about your values, like, this is a really important exercise. And it's important to know your values before your values get, you know, out of line or misaligned. So one thing I think is important is to spend that time to think through what is important to you, and then how you align that to your career, to your profession, to your job, is going to be really beneficial, because you've already done the legwork of what's really, truly important to you. And so I thought it would be fun to do a quick little interactive session on what your values are. And so we're going to create a word cloud together. And I'm going to throw this up on the screen. But this is a cool tool. And if you are doing lots of virtual sessions like I am these days, try it out. But it's called Slido. And just go to slido.com, or with your phone, you can take a picture and do the oh, that didn't show up in the background, but you can take a picture of the QR code, and then you'll put in the code 58041. And if you wouldn't mind sharing, and these are anonymous, you know, what are some of the values that are important to you? What are some of the values that you look for in a job? What are some values that are, you know, leading you when you make decisions? So we've got a couple that are going up there. I'm seeing leadership, honesty, authentic, impact. Oh, authentic is getting some big votes. Independence, responsibility. And if for some reason you can't get Slido to work, just put them in the Q&A, and I will verbally kind of read those out loud. So if you can't get Slido to work, don't worry, don't stress. We've got Q&A as the backup. I'm seeing leadership coming up as one. Another question, if you interview with me, I told you to ask you about your weaknesses, but I will also always ask about your values. That's really important. And then I always do a team values assessment. And so I've been on teams where learning is a really big value. So then I've actually moved budget dollars over to professional development, because I knew that was such a big value of my team. So then you can kind of adjust your office culture to be more reflective and inclusive of everyone's values. All right, so I'm seeing grit, I'm seeing vulnerability, I'm seeing integrity, positivity. This is cool. Empathy. I'm seeing, yeah, this is good. So authentic's coming up loud for the group, and responsibility. Cool. Cool. All right. So fun exercise. Thanks for playing. I'm going to keep us moving along, but if you want more time with the values, you can always just Google value worksheet, and then you can actually go through the exercise and circle kind of what your top 20 are, and then from your 20 narrow down to 10, and from 10, 5, and that will give you, you know, what your value baseline is. Okay, so just as important of knowing your values is knowing your non-negotiables, and this is what I call the rub. So when all of a sudden you're feeling a rub, and that equals like value misalignment, then you quickly need to know what your non-negotiables are, and come up with a plan of then what you're going to do. And some people on this call know that I had a dream job that turned into a nightmare because it was misaligned with the values that I had. And it wasn't until I had that misalignment and that rub that I truly then understood what my value baseline was, and then also what the non-negotiables were. And so think in terms of, like, if you're in situations or you're trying to make a decision to change your career, like, what are those non-negotiables? What are going to be the things that are absolutely no-goes for you? Number 3, and I apologize, I'm going to kind of go through these quickly to leave time for Q&A, but respect the rules of social media. This might be like super common sense for a lot of people, but for me, it actually was really helpful to see that there are boundaries and there's rules and there's like guardrails on the different social media channels. And so I think, like, if you think about it in terms of a donut, it's really helpful. And try not to use all the different social media platforms in the same way. They're not intended to be used in the same way. I think the sooner you can understand, at least, you know, from a personal perspective, how you're using the different platforms, the better. So I leave this graphic up here because, one, it just really makes a lot of sense for me to think about things in donuts, I guess. But 2, it's been surprising working with students how these lines are kind of blurred, and especially from like understanding a professional branding standpoint, or like when to use certain things. This is kind of was the easiest way. So this has been a lifesaver for me in terms of just understanding how to interact with the different platforms. Like I said, I am usually only on LinkedIn, so my skills include donut eating is probably very very reflective of then how I use social media. So number 4 is invest in LinkedIn. LinkedIn has a LinkedIn Pro option. It's expensive. It's like $42 or something crazy like that. But it's worth every penny if you are especially like looking for a new job or a new opportunity. It's worth it because it gives you access to so many different jobs that you never probably would have had hit your inbox, because the filters are so good in terms of like kind of really like trying to match make you with certain jobs. And there's other platforms that do this, but the thing I like about LinkedIn is that I've actually seen myself progress in application and interview processes based on who has been looking at my profile. So with Pro, you can also see like everyone who's looked at your profile. And so it just happened to be that when I've applied for jobs, I've seen people from the company I apply from start looking at my profile. And then I got an email for an interview, and then I had the interview, and then I saw people higher up in that company start looking at my profile. So it's been really interesting to watch it in that way. But also, especially in COVID, it goes back to that share your network and be a connector. But I've opened my network up to anyone who needs a recommendation or needs a referral or wants to do an informational interview. And it's just an easy way to try to matchmake people in different industries or different companies or orgs that might be helpful for someone who's job searching. So there's lots of bells and whistles and tips and tricks to LinkedIn. And I do think it's worth it if you are job searching to invest in that Pro. But also that professional footprint, it's the place I would say that you should invest in if you are, you know, looking to have a following, or to have an online network, or to reach out to people for informational interviews, or to just say like, hey, what you're doing is really cool and I want to cheerlead you or support you in whatever different way that is. So I love LinkedIn. I really do truly love LinkedIn. Number 5 is always ask yourself what you want to be when you grow up. And I think that you can never actually like ever be grown up. So this is a question you should ask yourself like your whole life, because that will change. But it's also really fascinating and interesting and wonderful to kind of see how your interests have progressed, and you know how they have, you know, maybe developed into a career you never thought of when you were obviously 5 or 15 or 25 or 35. And someone said to me, and it kind of went like the moment of like, oh my gosh, like careers you think about in terms of a 30 to 40 year, you know, relationship or journey that you're going to go on, or adventure, like however you want to phrase it, right? So there's going to be a lot of different chapters of that adventure book. So I think you should always ask yourself what you want to be when you grow up, and then see if that's what you're doing, or what it is that you need to be, you know, investing in or learning to get to that career that you know, is a couple of years down the line. So I always like to ask people what they want to be when they grow up. Number 6 is understand when to be the mentor versus the mentee, the coach versus the cheerleader versus the spectator. There's a lot of like different things about like what is a mentor, what is a mentee, what is a coach, like what are you? And people really want mentors, and people really want to be, you know, mentors to others. But sometimes I think the better role and the most important role is being a cheerleader. So I'm a really good cheerleader. I like articles, I share articles, I make connections, I cheerlead, I like from behind the scenes, I'm sending emails like, yay, you saw this. And there's, you know, just as much importance in, you know, blasting somebody's announcement or celebrating them or letting them know that you see them, that you hear them. That to me is empowerment, is recognizing that success and having that celebration. And it's something that I've tried to be more intentional in, especially in the last couple of years, because that's truly how I feel like I can support people. And I've been a mentor to people, and I've been a mentee, you know, especially to someone for the last couple years. But it's been interesting because also our relationship has transitioned in terms of now like we're equals, and she's not my mentor anymore. So there's definitely different roles where you are the mentor or the mentee, but I think, you know, also consider being the cheerleader or the spectator. You don't need to be involved in all the things. You can just be watching from afar too, and that's okay. So don't feel like you have to be like actively involved in someone's career, but let them know that if somebody asks you like, hey, will you be my mentor? And you just don't have that capacity or you don't have that interest, you know, just say like, hey, I'm happy to be your cheerleader or your spectator, because I think that everyone has their own definition of what mentorship is, and it's something that, you know, when it works, right? And it can't be forced. So number 7 is learn how to advocate for others, and more importantly, yourself. So self-advocacy is so important. I'm really good at advocating for other people, but not myself. And so get those cheerleaders. This is when you need the cheerleaders. This is when the people, like you need the people supporting you in the career changes. And number 8 is drink a lot of matcha lattes. I don't like coffee, so I love matcha lattes. Have a lot of informational interviews, meet a lot of people, obviously not in COVID, but have a lot of virtual coffee dates. And informational interviews are great as long as you go to the interview and listen, right? The whole point is to listen to someone and not have an ask or an expectation that they'll get you the job or the connection. It's truly to gather information about a career they might be in or something that they're doing that you think is really interesting, and pay for their coffee, right? Pay for their matcha latte, like pay for the time that they're spending with you. I love to do informational interviews. I love to have informational interviews. I just think it's a really nice personal way to have like a 30-45 minute like debrief with someone about, you know, helping them figure out if what you're doing is something that's right for them, or give the insight, or, you know, the good, the bad, the ugly of what it is that you're doing, or what it is that they're doing that you might be interested in. Number 9 is the forwardable email. So this is, and I realize what time it is. So this is doing the work for someone else. Help me help you. Write the email for them to forward on to the next person that you want them to introduce you to. Don't ask them to write that email for you. They won't. Put it in a copy, like in a way that they can copy paste it and forward it on. Do the work for them. I love it when people do the work for me, and all I have to do is just go into my my inbox, find the email address, and just hit forward. So do the work for someone in terms of that forwardable email. And number 10 is the pivot. So always be prepared, you know, that life might not go, the job might not go how you expected, and that it's absolutely okay to yell plot twist and pivot. So so that's, I think, sometimes, you know, the most beautiful thing about these 30 to 40 year job journeys, adventures that we have, is that, you know, they pivot into something completely unexpected. that might actually be, you know, what you're meant to be or do. So that was the last like rush to the end, and I did leave a Slido up for any Q&A, and Brooke, you can kick us off, or I'm happy to stay around for Q&A, but wanted to just thank you so much for the opportunity to spend this time at least talking from my personal perspective on how to get away from being a one-page resume.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us. Again, you guys can use the Q&A to ask any questions. Somebody said they learned so much today, so that's great feedback. I can tell you that I took notes the whole time, so I definitely appreciate all of your insight. And then you guys also have the option to post your questions on the Slido, just like you did your words, your values for today. So if you guys have anything, throw it our way. Great job.
Thanks, everyone. And you can find me on LinkedIn, Lesley Jacobs Robinson. So please LinkedIn me. I am really active on there. I'm happy to open my network to you and make connections and intros that way as well. So Lesley Jacobs Robinson.
Okay. You got an awesome job, Lesley. Really great tips and reminders. Thank you so much for all of your insight. I loved it and I learned so much. A fan of Shakira too.
That's so funny. So that's gonna be my memorable moment is Shakira, right? So that was it.
Yes, somebody said, yay, you have a great evening. Another person asked if this is being recorded. It absolutely is. It will be on the King Careers website and TU's YouTube channel on the King Careers playlist as soon as we can get it added. So it will be there. Just keep an eye out for that.
I'm going to pop up my virtual or my electronic business card so you can reach me here. My LinkedIn's there. I saw the question about building a network in a pandemic. That's going to be so hard to do. The nice thing is there's lots of virtual coffees, or there's lots of free virtual events. There's lots of like Slack channels that you can join. I love this thing called civic dinners, where you can get paired with random strangers and have dinner around a conversation. Again, LinkedIn, reach out to people who have jobs that sound so cool, or that you know, are writing things that are so cool, or doing research that sounds so cool to you. Send a authentic message, and yeah, just start building that way.
That's all I see so far. Oh.
Okay, I think we're good.
Somebody said Slido.com is super cool. I will use that in the future. Really good job being engaging authentically virtually.
Thank you.
Lots of good feedback for you.
So let's do like the hurricane swirl. You know I can end it without the hurricane swirl. Go Kane.
Love it. Well, Lesley, thank you so much for joining us today. I know that our students and everybody who hopped on this call today really appreciated all of your insight. I know I have pages of notes to go back and start implementing things. So I love the creative ideas, and it's also nice to know that networking doesn't have to be something that you have to go out and create. So just so much, so many good insights and new tips and tricks for our kids to plug in. So we really appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right, everybody. I don't see anything else. So it looks like, yeah, looks like we're good. All right, everybody have a great day. Finish the week strong. Go do your thing.
Bye.